Welcome to Pregnant Tea, your cozy corner in the world of pregnancy where we sip on stories, wisdom, and the occasional cup of actual tea. I'm your host, Kendra Pace from Natural State Wellness. Each week, we brew up candid conversations with mothers who've walked the path you're on, sharing their triumphs, challenges, and everything in between. We also invite professionals to spill the tea on tips, tricks, and techniques for each stage of pregnancy. We'll be talking about everything from prenatal care to postpartum recovery. So whether you're a first-time mom-to-be or a seasoned pro, grab your favorite mug and settle into your comfiest chair as we venture into this crazy and wonderful world of pregnancy together. Today we've got Kat on Pregnant Tea telling us her birth stories. She had a vaginal birth in a hospital and a vaginal birth in a birth center. I'll have you start out by telling us about yourself and your family.
Okay, so hi everybody, I am Kat. I have been married to my husband for almost 6 years. We knew pretty immediately that we wanted to be together, and a family was a big part of that. So it happened all pretty quickly. Dated, married within a year and a half, and then had our babies shortly after. We have Carter, who is 3 right now, and Collins, who is a year and a half. We also had our babies very close together, 2 very different deliveries and pregnancies for that matter. So for Carter, we knew we wanted to have a family pretty immediately. I had been on birth control, a variation. I had ovarian cysts when I was 13 and had 2 surgeries to remove them. So had an issue with ovarian cysts recurring. So I was put on birth control at 14. By the time I was with Matt, I had been on birth control for about 13 years. I had 30 years old in my head. I wanted to turn 30 and then magically I'd just get pregnant. So when I turned 30, I went off birth control literally the next day, thinking you just have sex and get pregnant, and that's how you get pregnant.
Yep. I think a lot of us missed whatever, if they even taught us in health class.
Literally, I was like, this is, you just have sex,
right?
And you're good.
Any time of the month, doesn't matter. Just do it once and you're good.
No, I had no idea about ovulation. No, I just thought you had sex and you got pregnant. So as long as it was unprotected and I was off my birth control, we were going to start our family. So I was 30. It took us 13 months, so just a little bit over a year to actually conceive, which was frustrating because I didn't understand why, and I didn't understand that it is common and it does take time. And I think preparing yourself for that is important to understand. It's all on a timeline. Might not be your timeline, but you certainly can use help like ovulation tests. And we relied on that. And I relied on so many ovulation trackers and logs and writing stuff down. And it's almost like it also took the joy away in that time because you're so focused on getting pregnant. We got to try this and we didn't do that. I wouldn't say we had the most enjoyable ride the first time because we also both got stressed out about it. We didn't understand why it wasn't happening. I think the period before actually getting pregnant wasn't this joyous time. And yet we had just had this whirlwind romance and married, and then it's now why isn't this working?
Let's talk about, because you were high risk.
Not at first. So I do have lupus and I have 2 bleeding disorders. One is in the family of hemophilia, so I bleed too much, and one is in the clotting family, so I clot too much. So if you try to clot me from bleeding, I clot too much. If you try to bleed my clots, I bleed too much. But all said and done, they were like, you're fine, not high risk at first. So I originally did start at the same place as Collins. Started there. Originally, that was the plan for Carter too. And then all the way through 20 weeks is the anatomy scan. Had a great pregnancy. Had nothing. It was wonderful. It was great. Maybe a little sickness. I would be pregnant every year if I could. I had a great pregnancy. At 20 weeks, though, it was COVID. And so you could not at that time go with anybody else. As a first-time pregnancy, You have no idea what you're about to hear in any of your appointments. It was horrifying because at the anatomy scan, they found out Carter's left kidney, it was dilated. So there was definitely an issue with his kidney. I'm alone. I have no idea what they're telling me. I don't understand. I'd like to think I'm a fairly competent person, but in that moment, it's emotional. You're like, well, what did I do wrong? Did I do something? And you're all alone. So it was horrible. Because of that, I then was deemed a high risk pregnancy, more for his issues, not mine. So he had to be followed from 20 weeks by a pediatric urologist. The only pediatric urologist was at one of the main hospitals. So that is where I carried out the rest of my pregnancy care. That was the reason for the switch with him.
So you had originally planned, you had an idea in your head, you wanted to have him at a birth center, and then this kidney issue came up, and then you had to go
Switch.
Typical hospital route.
Yeah. And I think mainly because at the time, none of my health concerns were an issue. So it was like, well, I don't need to be at a big hospital. I'm closer to home and more relaxed and more, I think, more geared towards the woman and the mom, which was, I'm the one carrying it. Mm-hmm. So important. So we ended up going to the hospital because we had to see the pediatric urologist. The rest of 20 weeks on was that. So large waiting room areas, people in and out, not a whole lot of attention, more attention on him. So I was thankful. A lot more scans and constant monitoring and measuring the dilation. What they did was actually very impressive for his care. I didn't particularly get care, which is okay because at that time, he's the most important thing. And that is most important. But that was a huge difference of my second pregnancy. I actually felt cared for during my second pregnancy versus this one.
Everything went pretty well from 20 to what week did you deliver?
Carter decided 36 weeks. I started having contractions and everyone was like, it's Braxton Hicks. Don't worry about it. You'll be fine. And again, you don't know a thing, but you do know when something is changing. You don't know, but you also know. And I knew these aren't Braxton Hicks. There's movement. He is coming. So I went to the doctor. I was 3 centimeters dilated for an appointment. And he said, is there anything you can do to make this happen? Is there anything I can do? How does this work? We also are a considerable drive. So my concern was, we're far away. My husband drives like a grandpa. So I'm like, we're going to get divorced on the highway. We're never going to make it. I could already picture the fight in my head. And I was like, I know we're going to have it. So I also wanted to stay pretty close just out of fear. And I wanted to be there. The doctor at the time swept my membranes and said, stay close. So that was on a Friday. I started having contractions. Friday night, like 2 a.m., I woke up and I had lost my mucus plug. Also horrifying.
For the first time, I would imagine.
Also unbelievable that that's a thing.
And what a name. You could come up with something better.
It's truly a mucus plug.
They went straight for it with that one.
Truly, there's no question. You're like, oh, that's what that is. Got it. But then again, I'm like, so that means we're in labor, right? We're having a baby. So it's 2 a.m. I get mad up. We're good. We can go. No. Sit tight. Nothing. Nope. You're fine. So we sat tight all Saturday. I remember hanging up the mirror in the nursery. I vacuumed the stairs. I'm never going to be able to vacuum the stairs again. I'll never be able to do these things again. I can do them all. So I went around the house.
Kicked in.
I went around the house like a psycho. I was like, won't be able to do this. Won't be able to do that.
Better dust these crevices while I'm at it.
It's going to be 18 years till I can touch this again. I did that. And they went on perfectly fine. We were with family. We were hanging out. And then 4:30, my water broke. I sat down to eat a slice of pizza with my father-in-law. And on his couch, my water broke. So that was the start of it. We got to the hospital by 5:15, and was on fire. Stripping naked. I'm a fairly conservative person. Stripping my clothes off, getting naked as fast as I could in the waiting room. Did not care. Don't know who I saw. Don't know who saw me. Don't care. I was like 600 degrees. I needed every article of clothing off of me. And now Matt is mortified. He's like,
embarrassed.
Doesn't know what to do. He's like, I'll get your cancel.
Honey, your bra.
Just pick that up off the floor. So it was just so intense. And I'll say, I probably should have started, because of my bleeding disorders, I did have to do injections every day during pregnancy.
Okay, what kind of?
Blood thinners, actually, just to prevent blood clots. So I had to do a daily injection just into my belly. It was not bad. And my plan at that point was to get an epidural. I was begging for a C-section. Nothing's coming out of nothing.
This was when you're in labor or before?
Before.
Okay.
I should have said this.
No, that's okay. So this is great. Great to know.
My whole plan was drug me up, give me an epidural, or cut me open. I could care less. It's just not coming out. Not an option. Just not an option. I'm not doing it. I was pretty adamant. I was trying to make the case with my bleeding for a C-section. Let's plan it. Let's have it controlled. Let's do it. Was not a thing. So the injections clot you. So you cannot have an epidural for the life of the shot. The shots that I was taking had a 24-hour life. So at 36 weeks, they suggest moving to a half-life, 12 hours, which would at least open up your window. The general anesthesiologist was like, nope, you can stay on the 24-hour shots, no problem. Don't even worry about it. And I had used the exact example. What if my water breaks and I do go into labor and I've already taken a shot that day? You're going to be fine. No problem. Don't worry about it. I don't know any different. My plan is still my plan. I'm getting an epidural and I'm going to have a baby. It's fine. My water breaks. It's still all fine to me because the anesthesiologist told me it's going to be fine. So I'm good. I'm still getting that shot.
Right. I'm not going to feel a thing.
I'm going to feel a thing. Let's do it. So I strip. I am 100% naked by the time we get into a room.
Love that for you.
And I just don't.
Love that for Matt.
The most uncomfortable human. It out of body. Didn't care. Don't care. Completely naked. And then it was, oh my God, do I poop? Like, am I going to poop? Is this a thing?
So that's when that kicked in for you.
Yes.
That's something I'm concerned with right off the get.
Oh, in that I was like, oh my God, I can't poop. I mean, I'm now naked. I'm going to poop all over. So
there's nothing, no way to stop
There's nothing. And I think that was more like, because I had a big mental fear about that too. Which is like the last thing you think, but it is. And so that was right away. So naked, 600 degrees, and had to poop right then. So did that. I get out of the bathroom. I'm like, okay, check that off. Like, I'm moving along right down my checklist. I'm moving.
You had a birth plan in your head and you were just going right along with it.
I'm doing great.
All right.
The poor nurse comes up to me. So it's probably 6 o'clock, 6:30 at this point, 2 hours in. And the nurse comes in. I'm like, hey, nice to meet you. Like, we can get going on the epidural stuff.
Keep tapping me.
You can send in that order. I had already told Matt too, while I'm going to the bathroom, if a nurse comes in, get that ordered. That's what we're doing. You know me. I'm like, we're on this, right?
Yep.
So great, out of the bathroom, check. And then I see the nurse. Perfect. Time to order it. This poor girl looks at me and she's like, I am so sorry, but you cannot get an epidural until 8:30. And in my head, I'm like, okay, hold on for 2 hours. a.m. I looked at Matt and I just started to sob. And I looked back to her and I was like, well, then I can't have the baby. Then I don't know what to tell. I cannot do this. I will not do this. This wasn't the plan. I said, please get somebody else. And I said, I don't mean to be disrespectful. Could you please get somebody else's opinion? She's like, this just came from the chief anesthesiologist. I was like, that effort. That's the
And
person.
this was the same guy that you had spoke to.
Yes. I was like, this is the same guy. So then I was like, so I'm up against the wall. What am I going to do?
Right.
So then Matt, we can do it. We can do it.
Oh.
We can do this. Yeah. We like hell. So there's no option. The only thing I was afraid of in having a child was having a vaginal delivery. And
you're basically forced into it.
I was forced into having a vaginal delivery. So that was 6:30. Carter was born at 8:15 p.m.
Wow.
Yeah.
You moved right along.
Yes. So it was sheer terror.
So was it as bad as you were envisioning?
Yes. Yes. It is just going through it the first time. You also don't know, does this last 24 hours?
Right.
You don't know in comparison. And when we'll talk about Collins, there's just such a peace about it because you know what to expect. The first one, you hear about labors that last 3 days and so you're in that pain and you're dilating. And you're just like, wow, is this for 36 hours? Because I'll be done. I can't do this for 36 hours. The hardest part for me was in both was dilating. So getting to the full 10 is so painful. It's like being you're just opening up your whole everything. And you can't do anything about it because you can't push. When you can push with the pain, it's freeing. You're making progress. You're moving the baby out. You can use the pain to push, to actually do something. The waiting is just excruciating. And again, I think mentally you're like, is this 2 days or is this 2 hours? If you told me 2 hours, okay, I can. It's like running a marathon and you know your time.
Right.
You've
got an end and
you know you've got X hours of pain and you're going to cross that finish line. It's worth it, right? It's a great unknown and nobody in that room can tell you.
Right.
Nobody. And they're like, you're moving along, you're doing great. But how much longer? Can anyone tell me? Can I mentally just and I'm a plan person. So I need to know how much longer. I need to know what's expected of me and what's going to happen. No one in that room can tell you.
Were any of them helpful in helping you find any peace within it?
The nurses who work in labor and delivery, wherever you are, I think are just incredibly special people. Yes, incredible people. I had really horrific back labor. And the one nurse, I think she kept getting me heating pads for my back. At the same time, I kept having Matt just dump ice cubes on me.
I was still like, I guess, yes, that helps. But also,
it was the craziest range of I can't get comfortable. So I needed all the things. And I just remember her running back and forth and still replacing it on my back. And Matt doing the ice cubes.
So was it actually helping?
Oh, yeah.
But you were also just super hot.
Oh, I was still,
600 degrees.
Still 600 degrees, still absolutely naked. I mean, there was nothing could make me comfortable in that moment. And I didn't know I didn't know what was happening. You don't know what's next. So yeah, the heating pad on the back labor was clutch. Ice cubes and not speaking was also lovely. I know people joke about that. You're going through trauma, and I wanted the nurses to tell me I'm doing great. I wanted them to tell me we're seeing progress. I wanted to tell me, yep, baby's moving down the canal. I didn't want to hear, I don't know, there's something about I think the spouse in your ear is like, shut up. I know.
I'm doing this. You're useless at this point.
It's like your closeness is just like, it's just too much for that point, you know? And then when I was 9.5 centimeters, that's it. That's all you're doing. Getting comfortable, getting to the next contraction, getting comfortable, getting to the next contraction. So it's just a waiting game. And this is the part when people have labors that are that long, they're amazing. So at 9.5 centimeters, one of the doctors reached up and can actually push down the other half centimeter of your cervix. Wouldn't recommend. They're like, but once you're there, then you can start pushing. So I, great. Okay, so I can get closer to pushing.
So you were all game for it. You're like,
Go for it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And she had said, it's going to be horrifically painful. And I said, okay. She was like, we'll do it on the next contraction. So she went up, she pushed down the other half centimeter. Just, I don't even know how to describe that level of pain. But then it was time to push, thankfully.
And you could work with it.
Oh gosh, It felt so great. It felt like the contractions don't feel as bad. And, you're holding onto the railing and you're pushing. I can use the pain, you're breathing. The whole breathing part, I don't know how you breathe through that. To not push is very difficult.
That's what everyone says, is to not bear down when you're in it. It's almost like a reflex, or you just like, what do you mean I can't push right now?
Totally. That is really the hardest part, when you can start using your pain and then breathing. And I think in even, in yoga, when you take a breath and then you audibly like let that breath out, when you can start doing that, for me, it was also like, it just helped me mentally get through it. And I was loud and I was swearing, you do all those things.
It's primal.
It's primal.
Yeah.
Completely. So
as it should be.
And I think for Matt was there. They had asked him at that point to like hold one of my legs. And he was just like, I couldn't stop watching. Not that he was like watching it, up close, but he's like, there was just something really about like animal about it, where it was, this is my wife and this is our baby coming out and this is, you're delivering a baby, and that primal sense to just be here and present was very much so.
And that's incredible that he had that realization in the moment.
It was, and for him too, he was like, it's not that type of person. And he'll still say like, it was just, you're right there, and how could you not take part in it? Yes.
Yeah.
So then the Ring of Fire.
I hear great things.
Never knew about it. So like in some things, it's a blessing you don't know.
Ignorance is bliss sometimes.
Ignorance is bliss. I think the most important thing is, when will this end and when does the baby come? So then the Ring of Fire is right when the baby's head is basically coming out, is partially out. And you would know more than I. But they don't want you to push at that point because it can lead to ripping. Right. So you want to basically embrace that Ring of Fire and breathe and hold and hold. So at the moment that Carter was in the Ring of Fire, I happened to look up, and what's on our ceiling? A huge mirror. I had not noticed it. So now we're like 3 hours of being there. I had not noticed that there is a giant mirror on our ceiling. And I look up and I just see this black-haired baby just hanging, like head is just hanging out of my V. And I look at Matt. Poor Matt looks up, and then he's like, is that? And I was like, I think so. That was the first time that we had seen Carter. The most painful, but then in that moment was the most rewarding, because he's here. He's got to be coming out. I mean, he's got to get out of there real quick. And so that was it. In hindsight, the fact that mirror was there and it caused me to pause, caused Matt to pause, caused us to have an exchange. Otherwise, it's like when a bug bites you and your hand goes to slap the bug bite. It's a reaction. You want to push that out as fast as you can when you are in that Ring of Fire. Is just get it out. But I paused because of the mirror, and Carter was out, and I needed one stitch, and everything else was, wonderful. It was easy. One stitch was nothing. And then he was here. The afterbirth, one of my least favorite parts. The contractions are pretty bad. You're still having contractions. You're like, at the time when the baby does come out, there is this sense of like, oh, you haven't blacked out the whole experience, but you've blacked out a good majority. All of a sudden you're good. You're done. You're like, wow. Oh, that wasn't okay.
Like, I can do this again.
Don't get me wrong. It's bad, but 30 minutes, hour later, I could probably see how that happens again. I get it.
It's worth it.
I get it. Yes, it's worth it. I now have my baby, and in the grand scheme of things, it's over, and I'm okay. And that's with a really good delivery, right? I'm not saying they're all like that, but the afterbirth, the contractions I didn't know about, and I like the uncontrollable shakes. You were freezing. I couldn't stop shaking. I didn't know about that. So then I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going into shock.
Right.
I'm going to die. And I'm concerned. And the nurse is like, this is completely normal. It's okay. Good. I didn't know about any of that. So that whole part, you think the baby's out and you're done. There's like a tiny other chapter you have to get through.
Right. Another little birth.
Good. Yeah. A whole other thing has to come out of you. So that part didn't know about. And then you have to go to the bathroom before you can get moved to your room. I don't want anything to come out of me for at least 6 years. Like nothing. Nothing. And you have to do it before you have to do it before you go to your room. So you're also just like, really? Like, I just want to order food, get in my bed, have my baby.
After did they want you to go to the bathroom?
Like within a half hour, it's like, hey, if we're going to move you, you got to do this. It's like, well,
can I do it when I get there?
That might take me 3 days. I might not do that till I get home, quite frankly. And I don't want to do it. You're numb, you're in pain. Your vagina is swollen. You look like you just got hit by a truck down there. I don't even know where to pee from. I can't see anything. It's a bloody mess. And I had a wonderful delivery. So in perspective, what if you don't and you still have to do that? I couldn't understand it. Oh, they give you those Perry bottles or whatever the heck they are. I just remember sitting there and I was squirting it in the toilet. I was like, will she think this is me peeing? Did you? She said, is that your pee? And I said, I wish.
I thought you were going to go with it.
I thought I was going to. I know. I was going to, but I was like, I can't. Because I was like, what if something happens?
Right.
It's my fault. But no, I remember squirting that bottle and being like, will she think this is my pee? Will she let me go now?
So she's obviously been played before.
Yeah, totally. Totally. It's a great move. But you just want your bed, you want to be with the baby, you just want to get settled, and I don't know, you just want to get settled, especially if it's at night, right? You want to get to where you got to be. So yeah, so Carter was here my water broke at 4:30 and he was here before 8:30. So 4 hours, natural, water had broken. So he was just shy of 37 weeks when my water broke.
Wow.
Yeah.
And it ended up being basically complete opposite of what you wanted. You wanted a birth center. You wanted to have an epidural, possibly a C-section. And then, and how do you feel about it looking back on it?
Looking back on it, I think there's a lot of women don't understand, and I knew nothing. I also did nothing to help myself to know. I just was like, I guess it just happens, right?
It's
and
just
you
natural.
Figure it out, and right. So I think a lot of that threw me off. I don't know if it would have been different, but ultimately I did not have a single ounce of the labor and delivery that I wanted. But again, by the time we were in our room, I was like, I'm a superhero. I am awesome.
That's right.
I am proud of myself. I'm standing. I had peed. I didn't poop during.
And you got a baby at the end of it all.
And I have a baby and I did it. And no one can ever take that away from me. And that was one of the proudest moments, was probably bringing Carter and Collins. But Collins was a little different. Like I already knew. Carter was truly the first time where I was like, no one can take that away from me. I just had a natural birth, no medication, no nothing. And my kid is here and I did it. And I wanted a C-section. I wanted to be knocked out and just woken up with a baby in my arms. And I didn't have that.
Right.
Right. And that was fine too. But that was the path I wanted. And I got a completely different one. And I think for me, it's not completely natural to want to be so, I can do this. And again, give me the drugs. Let's do this is more my style because it's predictable.
It's more in control.
More in control. To me, that's more me. So to not have control, but then to look back and be like, no, I actually did that. And I did it by myself with amazing nurses, but I did it myself. And no one can take that away, ever. I think the closeness that it brought Matt and I after
Like kind of reflecting on it?
Not during, yes.
Sure.
Because he's like, it was, to hear him say it, he's like, it was just so amazing. Like, it's so amazing to watch. And it's just, it really, truly is a miracle.
Yeah.
But your body does do what it needs to do, and it knows what to do. And you just have to trust yourself that you're actually capable of doing it in whatever path, right? So that baby still has to get out.
Right.
It's
and
still your
they don't
body.
Stay in there,
Yes. So either way it gets out, it's still you've got to do it. And I think there's the strength of that. Knowing that you did it is just such a rewarding part of it. So now it's like, oh, give me a break. I had 2 kids with natural births. I can do anything. Like,
Absolutely.
I don't care. Yeah, that nothing phases me. Like, that's all fine.
So with having the plot twist of the change in how your first birth went, you found that to be like pretty empowering for your second. How did it end up changing your next birth plan for Collins?
Changed it drastically, immediately. I remember being in the hospital with Carter and just being like, I don't know if I'll do it differently next time. Already at that point.
Even with all the pain and everything.
I'm saying I don't, people say, oh, you black it out. You black it out, and I say you black it out, but you remember just enough to be proud of yourself and that, like, you did this. But that's the part you remember. You don't remember the whole trauma of it necessarily. And when you do, somehow it's not as bad as how it actually was. So it's like there's a filter on it.
Right. That's a great perspective.
Yeah, you just don't. And so right away, I was like, I will probably do the same thing for our next child. I don't know if I would ever get an epidural unless it was an excruciating 24-hour labor, right? Like, I don't want to do that for 24 hours. I think that's extremely difficult.
But if you had it your way, no medication.
No, yeah.
So then fast forward to how long in between when Carter was born to when you got pregnant with Collins?
Carter was 9 months old and we were giving him a bath, and we wanted our kids close together. We just wanted our family. Carter was 9 months old, was giving him a bath. I was like, no, I'll take a pregnancy test. Took it, put it on the bathroom counter, forgot about it. Giving Carter a tub, forgot, was playing, having a great time. Matt comes into the bathroom. He's like, oh, we're pregnant. I was like, oh my gosh.
Here we go
again. It was the day that Carter turned 9 months.
Wow.
Yes. So they're just about 16, 17 months apart. So was pregnant quickly, I was not breastfeeding at that time. I had stopped, but I exclusively pumped for Carter. So I never nursed. Pumped for 6 months, and he had 12 months of milk. So he made it 12 months, but I only pumped the 6.
You were a mass producer.
I was a cow. And then, he ended up needing his kidney surgeries. He had his last kidney surgery at 7 months old. So when we got home was when we started to get back to routine and be relieved that he was done with surgeries. So I think we probably insanely were like, yep, no, we're good. Let's try. And we did. So we conceived Collins after the second time, which was drastically different than Carter.
Yeah.
And again, that was also our logic was, well, I think we got home from Carter's surgeries and we're like, well, I don't know if it's going to be a year. I don't know if it's going to be 6 months. I don't know how long it'll be. So we might as well start trying, kind of learn the lesson from the first time. Right. And just, we don't know when it's going to happen. So we have to be open to when it will happen. So I don't know if 9 months would have been my choice, but
it's what you got.
It's what I got. So the second time around, it's what I got. And yeah, but I don't know. I think that was a little close, but also because you're just at this point too, you're still learning, right? You don't even have a 1-year-old. So again, you don't know what the heck you're doing. Parenting is a wild ride. You have no idea. Every single day is new. To have a 9-month-old that you're still navigating.
Well, and on top of the fact that, you had to go through surgeries.
Yeah. So his stuff, he just was a different case of a kid where he just required a lot as parents right out of the gates that we didn't know what we were doing. So yeah, so Collins, 9 months, pregnant, easy peasy. And then was not high risk. They said, you can start with us or we can transfer, or you can stay with the birth center. I said, I'll stay with the birth center, and if I need to, I'll transfer again. No problem. Because there was no present issues that they could detect at that time. Everything was fine with her pregnancy. Hers, I had like low fluid, and she was small. So they were worried oftentimes with her, which at that point, again, it's like, be good. Like, it's okay. We'll get through this. So I think, you drink a lot of electrolytes and make up for it, but stayed at the birth center. They wanted to induce me at 39 weeks because of my bleeding. It wasn't an issue the first time. Better safe than sorry. We'll induce you at 39 weeks. Works for me. I'm a planned person. See you there.
Right? What's the date and time?
Put it in my planner. Was like, hey, this is the day we're having the baby. Carter's got care. Here we go. Matt and I woke up. We went and got our bagels, got our coffee, showed up to the hospital. Was like, this is going to be great. And then it hit me. Everything was good up until I walked through the hospital doors. And I was like, I don't want to be induced. Why would I be induced? I don't want to be induced. And I just went into a little bit of a frenzy. Second time I'm crossing into a hospital acting like a lunatic. But this time I'm like, no, I don't want to do it. I'm not going to be induced. I don't want Pitocin. I don't want to do it. I've heard it's horrible. And at that point I was like, why would I do that if I already know that my body and my baby, like Carter was a fantastic example. Water broke, natural, moved right along. I already have the confidence that I know I can do that. So why wouldn't I give myself and my body the chance to do that? Wouldn't have ever had that perspective if I didn't have Carter that way. So I had a wonderful, wonderful midwife and a wonderful nurse who came in to do my intake. And I think I was about 3 centimeters dilated, but no movement, no contractions. It was silent in there. She wasn't coming out. and I knew that.
It was the opposite of Carter.
And I also knew that I was like, it probably would have been another 3 weeks. Like she wasn't coming out. But at the same time, I was 3 centimeters. So I was like, well, there's something. Like my body is saying there is something happening.
It's working on it.
Working on it. I'm happy with that. So I expressed that. And I said, I just feel like I've done it before. And I don't mean to be like, oh, I've had 8 kids and I'm a pro. But I've had one pretty successfully. And I also feel if I was given time, I could have her successfully without, really, I just didn't want Pitocin. So they were like, just don't sign the form. I'm like, what do you mean don't sign the form? We can't do anything without your consent. So I said, okay. And the midwife was like, listen, I'm here for 24 hours. We will have your baby, but let's do it your way. What do you want to do? And I'm like, on my phone, I'm like, well, I've heard that you can try all this. And so
might as well.
Yes. She was like, I'm not going anywhere. Let's just try it. She goes, if at the end of my shift, at the end of 24 hours, if we have no movement, we will have to induce you. And I said, that's fine. Give me 24 hours though. Give me a fair shot. She was wonderful with that. And she was like, we're not going to sign anything until you're comfortable with it. And because with Carter, when they swept my membranes, that led to me losing my mucus plug, which then 12 hours later, my water broke, which then led to Carter. So in my head too, I know that you can do stuff to move it along without giving me any drugs to do that or make that happen. They wouldn't sweep my membranes for some reason. So I'm like, do that thing. Do that thing you do. Make it happen. I don't, which was interesting, but I think there's infection risk or something. And so it was interesting that they wouldn't, but the other place was like, whoop-de-doo, here you go. Great.
Let's get this going.
Sweet. Awesome. So Matt and I, oh my gosh, what did we watch? I don't know, some, binge-worthy TV show. We just watched it in the hospital all day. I bounced on the ball. I had brought my pump at that point because I was very comfortable pumping. I'm just going to pump and bounce all day. I'm going to have this baby.
We had a plan.
Yes. So it's like also very different where I didn't even know how to put on a breast pump with Carter. Didn't even actually know how to work it. I would have never bounced on a ball. Like there's just all these things. I'm like, I can do this. I can do this. I can do this. And I'm going to do this.
You had this drive.
Yes. And you have the confidence because it's like, I know how to do this now. Just leave me be. They did do that, like two pills to soften the cervix or to ripen it or whatever that is. I think I got to 4 or 5, but like no movement. Girl wasn't doing anything. She's like, this is fun, but I'm not doing anything.
And how long had this been when you got to 4 or 5?
This was like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And I was like, this is not happening ever. I'm just gonna have to work harder. You know, you're on Google at that point. I'm searching anything I can.
Going down the rabbit hole.
Yes. So the midwife came back in and I said, can you break my water? And are you comfortable doing that? And is there any risk? And can we try that? And da da da. So she's like, I can go up and break your water. It will immediately put you into labor. So you're either gonna have, and if you don't, then we have to get the baby out. So your choice. So break my water. So make that happen. She was wonderful. And she was like, typically, if you've had a natural delivery the first time, we say that your labor is going to be about half. So if Carter was 4 hours, you can expect 2 hours. She's like, mark my words. You're going to be out of here. You're going to have your baby in 2 hours. So I'm like, okay. So she breaks my water. Within 2 minutes, I'm having contractions 2 minutes apart.
Wow.
Strong, like just knock you down, strong, out of nowhere. And I looked at Matt, I'm like, get out the timer. Like, here we go.
So, challenge accepted.
Again, like you are speaking my language. So she comes back, and I'm having horrible back labor again. And she's like, let's put you in the pool. Wonderful. That sounds lovely. If I've got another hour or so of this, super, get me in the pool. The pool is at the other end of the hallway. Not a problem. I make my way down slowly between contractions, like using the wall when I'm having contractions. Get down to the other end of the hallway. They have Matt and I in there. They're like, just pull this cord if you need anything. Okay. I'm going to stay in here as long as possible, forever. I get just down into the pool enough for like my lower half to be in the pool. And I feel like the baby has now dropped out. Like the baby is now out of me. I scream, but I can't get out because I'm in so much pain. I was like, Matt, get the doctors, like right now. My poor husband. Again, I'm naked as the day I was born. He's mortified. And the doctors and the swarm of people that came in, my midwife comes in, she's like, oh my God, we need to get you back down to the room. They are literally scrubbing up as they're walking me down the hallway.
So they didn't want you to have a water birth?
No.
Okay.
Did not want me to have a water birth, wanted me to get back into the room. But now they're scrubbing up, walking down the hallway. And I looked at Matt and I was like, am I going to have the baby in the hallway? But I kept saying, I'm like, she's right there. Like, she's right there. She's out. She's right there. That's all I could say. Like, I just felt her. So we get back. I barely get onto the table. And I push all of 2 times. And she's talking to me. And she's like, you're doing great. And she's like, so can you just hold it right here? Let's just talk. How are you doing? And I'm like, I'm great. This really hurts. She's like, yeah, this is actually the ring of fire. She's like, but you're doing great. You're doing wonderful. I look down, I'm like, this is the ring of fire? To then know that I was just talking to her, cool as a cucumber. Like it hurt. I'm having a child, but like I could have a conversation. She's like, I don't know what you do in your life, but the fact that we're just talking, this is wonderful. Can you stay here a few more minutes? I guess. So we stay. We talk. Matt's like, does it hurt? I'm like, of course it hurts. I feel great. But we talk, and then she's like, all right, just push on out. No tearing, no nothing. Collins was out. It was an hour and 49 minutes.
Wow. You accepted that challenge.
Done. Done. So it was super quick. She broke my water. Contractions are 2 minutes. I got down to the pool. I got back and I had the baby. And it was so much more relaxing. Again, but also with every contraction, I pushed a few times, but I knew the movement at that point. I knew that she was going down the birth canal. Like I knew that she was getting her way out. Everything felt like I knew what stage we were at.
It was familiar.
Yes, like I knew exactly what everything meant. There wasn't really any surprise. The surprise to me was that I was just talking while I had a child hanging out of me. I mean, like,
that's pretty incredible.
But there were no surprises in that and how quickly. But I also knew, even as quickly it happened, I knew I was having her. Like I knew I needed to get back to the bed. I knew that she was coming out. I wasn't as thrown off as the first time. One of my really good friends, thankfully before, was like the afterbirth is way worse with the second. I'm like, oh, we'll see. But it was much more intense. The cramping was much more intense. And I was like, oh, she was right. This is awful. But also know it ends. I know everything ends at that point. I had the shakes again. I knew all of that though. So there's just so much more of a peace with it. And I think there were 2 people in the room. I think it was a midwife and a nurse, as opposed to 10 people in the room the first time, where there's all that commotion, right? And then this time it was just Matt and I and a midwife, and she was cool as a cucumber, and she's, it's no big deal. Once I got into the room, down the hallway, everyone was, we were swarming. But once we got into the room again, it was just peace. And it was like, all right, let's just do this. No problem.
That's really incredible. And then once she was born, did they change rooms in the birth center, or did you stay right in there?
They did. They changed you to the other side of the other side of the wing.
And did you have to go to the bathroom first too?
That's a good question. I don't remember it. I don't think so. I remember we moved pretty swiftly over to our room, and that was where we were going to be. The first delivery with Carter too, it was still COVID, blah, blah, blah. But he went to the nursery so we could sleep. The first night, I was like, he can go to the nursery, we can sleep. We kept him the first night. The second night, I was like, I need sleep. Like, I'm never going to sleep again. And I don't know how to do this. So the first night, you're so excited. You just stare all night at the baby to make sure that they're still there. And the second night, we sent him to the nursery. It was different at the birth center because they don't do the nursery. You keep the baby the whole time. So that was something for me where I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm already out of sleep. Like I'm done. I don't get that again. I spoke to a nurse and she's like, we don't do that. We don't have a nursery. But if you want me to take the baby so you can sleep, I will happily take the baby so you can sleep. And you have to feed them every 3 hours. So like by sleep, we're talking an 3-hour shift. Like you have to feed them. And I had to pump and I had to do all my things. I just wanted the 3 hours because inevitably, as soon as you close your eyes, you're going to get 40 minutes and then woken up or vitals or whatever. So just remember, although that was something that they didn't necessarily do, they still did in talking to me, which I respected. I was like, that's really kind. And she ended up being a wonderful nurse. So, I mean, everybody that works in labor and delivery are angels, truly.
It really is a different breed.
Beyond, because you're also, you're dealing with sleep-deprived people that are in trauma, pain, all the things. And yes, there's a wonderful little baby, but
all the stuff that comes with it.
All the stuff that comes with it, and just you had to go fight through. The birth center was also empowering. It was probably better for me because I also had the confidence to empower myself to be able to advocate, where I definitely wouldn't have with Carter. No matter, it would take an extreme amount of trust for me for them to tell me that I could do that.
Right.
The first time around.
And how do you advocate when you don't know what to expect?
I have no idea. So I do think the birth center was wonderful and freeing to just say, don't sign it. We'll
giving you options.
We'll give you options. What other options do you want to do? And that's good. Here's our parameters. And here's what we're going to ask. We just compromise and we make it through. So we had a baby by the end of the day.
How long did you stay there?
2 nights.
With the hospital?
Yeah. Yep. 2 nights, 2 nights. You're just, the second is so much more enjoyable in ways because you're so much more confident as a parent.
Sure.
So like the labor and delivery, the pregnancy, you're not Googling every 5 seconds. You're good.
You're going with it.
You're going with it.
Mm-hmm.
And then the same thing with labor and delivery. You're good. You know it. It's the same comfort in parenting. I remember Carter had, huge, they have like these paper thin, horrible razor nails. And I remember asking the nurse, can you cut those? She was like, oh, we aren't allowed to. You have to. We have to. I said, well, I don't know how to do that.
It's terrifying.
Yeah, that's terrifying. Their fingers are this big. And then...
Do you have a magnifying glass?
Seriously. And I remember looking at Matt like, we gotta do that? With Colin's nails were absurd. Girl came out with the longest nails. And I looked at Matt. I'm like, that would have freaked me out before. And like now, cool, I'll do that when we get home. You just know. So I think we enjoyed the 2 days in the hospital more than Carter. All those first days of stuff that happens with the babies, and you just don't know.
How was it having 2 under 2?
It's worth it. It's worth it. It's a lot, but it's worth it. They're just now actually starting to talk, and Carter's teaching her. He teaches her all the time, and she's on the potty, and she was throwing a fit because she didn't want to put her diaper back on. This was last night. And he goes, no, Collie. He goes, okay, do you want to go out and play? She goes, yeah. He goes, okay, you have to put on your diaper first. And I looked at him. So
logical.
I was like, Carter, that is such a big help to Mama. Like, I'm so proud of you.
And she probably put it on gladly?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. She goes, okay. So to see them build their little bond, it's just starting to get to that really sweet spot. They can play together. Matt and I can be in the kitchen getting dinner ready. They're in the playroom. Like, I'm not worried anyone's going to die or hurt each other. Yes. Like they also know when to come get help. They're getting to that real sweet spot where I can see it's only going to get better. I look at pictures of bringing her home to a 9-month-old or to a 17-month-old. I look at Carter, which is how old she is now.
Yeah.
And you could say 3 words and you're just tiny. And so, breastfeeding again, and the house doesn't stop. You do laundry, you cook, you life moves on. And so it's like, how did I do that? And then you're not sleeping. So how did you, you're
a zombie.
You're a zombie. Yeah. And how did we do all that? And then we still took care of another child. But you just do. And I'm sure that I have a lot of guilt. I'm sure I wasn't a good friend during that time, or I wasn't a good daughter, or I didn't do well at my job. I'm sure there are a million things I just didn't do well because that was the stage I was in. I was just surviving to keep my household together and to keep my babies fed.
And I feel like people understand that for the most part. Yes. People
we're close with are like, oh,
yes,
yeah, of course. And like, you look back and you're like, gosh, but I was like in this fog where like, maybe I didn't realize it was somebody's birthday, and I didn't even know what day of the week it was, And so now I'm like, oh my gosh, how could I have forgotten her? How could I have not done that? Yeah, now that my life is like just getting, I am feeling better and better every single day. So now when I look back, I'm like, well, yeah, I mean, no kidding.
You had a little bit going on.
Yeah, and like I did the same thing. I exclusively pumped. This time around, I pumped and I donated milk to NICU babies. So I was pumping same amount. I was pumping a ton.
So you had good production again.
Yeah. Time. Insane. So I was pumping a ton. I donated it. I fed Collins all the way up till she was a year. So both of them had breast milk for a year. I pumped with Carter for 6 months and her for, I think I did 8 months because I was still donating a bit. Also, whether you're nursing, breastfeeding, it's at least 20 plus hours a week to feed your baby.
It's a part-time job minimum.
Yeah, minimum.
Yeah.
I mean, it's at least 20 hours a week you are just feeding that baby. To look back, extremely hard for the first year and a half of Colin's life. To look at now and where we're headed, the best thing we ever did. The smartest, their bond, the fact that she's already sitting on the potty. We're going to be out of diapers.
Right.
We're hitting our stride.
Dang.
And like, I'm so proud of it. But yeah, it's not pretty. It's an ugly couple of years, but it's well worth it. I have friends that have older children, older girls that just had a baby, and there's a significant age gap. And you look at that and you're like, that works too. Because then you have built-in helpers and you have this and you have that. And I think any way your family is structured and age gap with kids, they're all a lot of work.
Right.
They're all.
It's all going to be messy.
It's a ton of work. It's thankless. You think those first years you're not getting, oh, I love you so much, mommy. You're my best friend. You're the great. No, you're not. You get nothing.
Right.
You get nothing.
You get fits because you wouldn't let them walk into the middle of the road.
Correct. And
but it'll come.
They don't want the polka dot underwear. They want the striped underwear, but you only have polka dot clean. Like, well, didn't get to the laundry today. Yeah.
You'll understand one day. You'll thank me one day.
I tried to explain to Carter tonight at dinner. He's really into Kings of Leon. Help me.
What a refined.
I know.
But we knew this about him. I mean, he's dipping bread in olive oil. So
he's a bit, he's advanced. He likes his things. So he needs it on. He wants it on during dinner. He's also trying to tell us a story. I'm like, Carter, mommy is overstimulated. So, do you know what overstimulated means? It's like, no, he can't pronounce it. We're all humans too. I just got home from work. We had to get dinner set. I got the music playing. I got him trying to tell me a story that he can't get through because it's a million miles a minute in his head and he can't get it out of his mouth. And she's screaming. The dog is trying to eat food off the table. It's pure chaos. Right. It's pure chaos. And so it's like, I'm overstimulated, but then I take a step back in a quiet moment. I'm like, this is the best. Like, I love my family. I love where we are. It's all good.
Yeah, it's all worth it.
Yeah, totally.
Anything else to reflect back on as far as anything for anyone who's expecting or mamas who might be in similar shoes as you?
So I started Carter with that appointment and being alone and finding out something was wrong. And I think if you're alone or if you have a spouse that can't be at an appointment, I think just always making sure you have a support system and being vulnerable enough to talk about it. Yes, there are things you can control in pregnancy, but there's a lot of stuff you can't control. There's a lot you can't control, and there's nothing you did wrong. And if something happens, you didn't do anything, and you'll still be a great parent. But I think having the right support system, I wish I had prepared myself a little bit more or prepared myself that certainly with Carter, like I think why Collins went so well was I advocated for myself. I just said, I'm really not comfortable with this. With Carter, I felt like that was taken away from me. I wasn't prepared for any other path. So
there's no plan B or C.
No. And they always say, like, have a plan B. And I should have listened to that. Again, you tell me something's going to happen, I think it's going to happen. That's the plan. We stick to it, right? For me, being a bit more flexible and putting the time to come up with a plan B, the important things are not what pajamas you pack for the hospital or what music you're going to have playing. No, that's not the important part. The important part is what you're okay with and what you're not okay with. Being able to be flexible with that, but also have your non-negotiables. I could have certainly helped myself a bit there. And then just knowing that it passes. It passes. It's your marathon, and you get to the finish line, whether you're walking, whether you're crawling, whether you sprint across, you will get to the finish line. And so I think knowing that the end is near, or the end is there rather, and you get this wonderful baby, and then this self-worth that wasn't there before. I'm just proud of myself, but I'm proud of all moms. Whenever I see a mom now, whether she's got a kid, pregnant, whatever, I am holding the door. I am asking how I can help her. I am doing anything I can because every mom deserves that. It's amazing.
That's so awesome. Well, thank you for sharing your stories, Kat. This was great. Loved having you on here.
I love it. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in on Pregnant Tea. I hope you've enjoyed listening to wisdom from our community of mothers and experts. If you want more relatable stories and empowering advice, head over to www.nswellness.net to subscribe for the latest content. Until next time, take care of yourself.